What's going on, everybody? Godzilla Options here with episode 9 of the Weekly Watch, where we go over stock market analysis and trade ideas for the upcoming week. In this case, March 13th, 2023. Before we get started, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow to get notified when a new video drops. As usual, we're going to take a look at the economic calendar for the coming week, check out what the indexes look like, and make some predictions, and then get into some of the setups that we're going to keep an eye on this coming week. So let's get to it. All right, let's talk about what's happening this week. It is going to start on March 13th, right? So Mondays typically have nothing, and that is pretty much what this coming Monday looks like. We have some bill auctions, but I wouldn't really go too deep in the weeds here with anything else. I guess there's going to be some customer inflation expectations which are released, but to me, that doesn't really matter. Anything that comes out during the market hours, unless it's something from the Fed, I don't really see that moving the market. Then if we move over to Tuesday, these it says 9:30. That's because, or 7:30, because we have to move forward tomorrow morning. So these will reflect 8:30 if I were to be looking at this tomorrow. So keep that in mind. Just add an hour to whatever you're looking at here. So what we have core inflation rates, inflation. These are going to move the market, right? Like this is the inflation stuff that we've been dealing with for quite some time now, and then CPI down here. So just keep all of this information in mind. So Tuesday morning before the market opens, we're going to get something that's all right. Let's talk about the setups that the Discord bot had spit out for the coming week here. As I think you all know at this point, you're playing the stock market. Things have been going down. It hasn't been pretty. In fact, there's been a lot that hasn't really helped the market out either. A few days here and there that it's gone green, but truthfully, those are probably just bull traps. So anyway, what are we looking at here? Well, the first one is PMGs to the upside. I don't see any PMGs to the upsides happening in the near future here. That's just my current bias. But we're gonna, look at them here. So we got our Baba, PFE, eBay, Lucid, MU, Neo, and QCOM. So a lot of tech in here. And then, we got PFE. So that, again, with the market sentiment I'm not really looking at PMG to the upside. I want you to look at your charts and you develop your own market sentiment though. So anyway, next is the outside bar down. These took out the previous week's high and ended up taking out the previous week's low. And most of this was done on Thursday and Friday. So over the span of 2 days, this is where the drops happened. So you'll see SPYs on this list, QQQs on this list. A lot of the things that the sector X's, the sector indexes, XLC, XLY here. This is just a pretty large list of things that went outside on the week. And these are only the things that we track. So keep this in mind. What we'd be looking for is range expansion, either a 2 up or a 2 down. So that's what we are looking for with the outside bars to the downside or the upside there, a 2 up or a 2 down. And then we have our failed 2 ups. These things went up. They broke the previous week's high, but then they didn't end up staying there. So they ended up red. That's what makes it failed. IOXY with the shooter candle, that's definitely one that's interesting to me. But if you take a look at the ones with time frame continuity all red, those are really where I'd be focusing at this point. The month was red. The week, we want to see the week go red, and then obviously the day would go red on Monday as well. And then we have our 1-2 up rev strat with AMD. That's prime for a 2 down reversal. So that'd be the rev strat complete pattern, 1-2 up, 2 down. Then we have our 2 down continuations. Nothing to see here. Pretty soon, I'm sure they're going to turn into PMG to the upsides. And then we have our 1-2-1 consolidation with utilities XLU. What I would say to do is in the bot, like in the bot commands channel, if you were to do $ holdings and then space XLU, you can see the top 10 holdings that the spider sector has an XLU, and that'll give you an idea of maybe something else that also had the inside bar, because keep in mind that this XLU is just an amalgamation of the things that it tracks and has stock in and holds. So those are likely going to be inside weeks as well. So you'll have a pretty nice list of 2-1s. All right, let's take a look at SPY and what it is doing, or lack thereof. So what we have here on the month, that's where we're starting, as always, to get a very broad picture of things, is a 2 down, right? That happened. When it happened, we'll take a look at it when we get to the smaller time frames, but we have the 2 up, 2 down reversal. So at this point, if your entry was this previous to last month's low, which was around 393.64, your price target is going to be 377.83. So you still have a good amount of move left here if you're looking to play SPY and your trigger was the previous month's low. Now, if we take a look at the week and see what's going on here. Okay, so to start off with, last week, I guess 2 weeks ago at this point, was a 2 down. It ended up going 3. So we are looking at what I like to call a double barrel setup here for SPY. Wow. You don't see these too often. You can look back on the charts, try to back test it, but you don't really see these a lot until recently. Actually, there's been some volatility. In fact, take a look at the levels here back in September. What we have is the double barrel here, and then here, and I'm sorry, had the double barrel. Yep. So we have, actually, I should just highlight these because it will make it easier to see. So if I do that, I'll just go with the first one for now. Look exactly what happened. I mean, I don't know if this could be a coincidence or not, but I mean, what we're noticing in our Discord is that these the reaction around previous 3 bars on high time frames is pretty interesting. So here we have it. I mean, and even this 1-3 that happened here kind of went up almost to the high. So anyway, so moving over here, we have our double 3. So what can we expect? Well, with 2 3s, obviously an outside bar means volatility, right? You don't really, I mean, if an inside bar means consolidation, an outside bar means volatility to me. So what you have usually following an outside bar is an inside bar. Now, that didn't happen this week. We had another outside bar. You can attribute that to the things that Powell said when he testified to Congress. You can attribute that to the bank failure, the Silicon Valley Bank failure, and who knows what else to follow. There's plenty of news to make this a volatile, that made this a volatile week. That's my point. So, the one hard thing about that is you can't trade volatile weeks, or safely trade volatile weeks. You'll get stopped out. Things might be moving in your direction, and if you don't have a stop loss, you'll get wiped. I know that happens to me every once in a while when I decide to get risky. As soon as I don't set a stop loss, I seem to get my play wiped away by some crazy thing Powell says or a bank failure. So anyway, what are we looking at? Well, for the outside week, I'm personally looking at an additional, just because I think at this point, going back to the month, we're going to finish the completion of this 2 up, 2 down reversal. In fact, this was a rev strat 1, 2 up, and this was a perfect 2 up because it was a failed 2 up and then a 2 down. So our price target is actually going to be, we'll see some support around 377.83, but the actual price target I'm going to be aiming at is 374.77. So we still have more than actually almost about a $10 move still before we get to that price target there. So anyway, back to the weekly. I'd be looking for some range expansion, excuse me, with the 2 down, which would actually take us down to this previous this previous pivot point here anyway. So that's SPY. All right, looking at technology, we are also on the 2 down trigger for the month. Again, same setup. We just don't have a 1 bar here. It's a 2. And anyway, previous month is a failed 2 up. So our trigger was going to be 290.05, and if you got in there, you're actually going to be targeting the low of this candle, which if I change it to actually give you the right amount, is going to be 260.34. Now that is a substantial drop. Barring companies having to shutter their doors, tech companies in Silicon Valley, because they don't have the money to pay their employees, and it just ends up being a ripple effect or another bank failure or something like that. I don't see that actually happening. Then again, it could, right? I mean, I didn't see a massive, billions and billions and billions of dollar bank failing this week either. But you never know. That is always a possibility, I suppose. So anyway, if I go back and take a look now at the week, we have a double barrel week as well here for QQQ. I mean, it moves very similar to SPY, so I'm not really surprised to see that here. Again, my sentiment that I have is downside, so I'd be looking at some range expansion, getting maybe like a 2 down play, under 287.38, and I would probably be targeting 281.18 here to kind of continue this previous pivot machine gun that we've slowly been taking out the stops for. All right, like remember the pivot machine gun kind of started up here actually, and we took out any stops here and stops here. And now our next target's going to be down in the 281.18 area. Now, if we do get range expansion to the upside over 304, I mean, some miraculous things need to happen this coming week. And I don't know if we're going to get that. If we took, if you recall, we took a look at the economic calendar for what's coming up, and I don't really see news that's going to make this go up. But anyway, if we do get our 2 up, I'd be targeting around the high of this 1 bar here of 309.27 for an upside play. But I would definitely keep your stop losses tight if you ever get in profit, because I truly don't really see a lot of upside potential here. DIA by far looked the ugliest. Looking at the month, we have our 213, and then this was the previous month, February, and now we have our 2 down. I mean, I don't see a lot of my first area is actually going to be of support's going to be right below the weekly low of 317.18. Now at that point, I definitely want to see if we're going to see some more downside movement, I'd be wanting to look at it to start going towards the quarterly low. Now, if we really take a look at a smaller time frame like the week, poor DIA, it suffered the worst from the Silicon Valley Bank failure over the course. It literally took 2 days. The Wednesday, I believe people were notified. Thursday, people were withdrawing money, and then Friday, the government stepped in to take control of the bank, to seize the bank. So I mean, we literally saw like a hundreds of billions of dollar bank failure in 3 days. Unreal. So anyway, we had our outside bar of for the week here, and again, we're looking at range expansion. If we're looking at broadening formations, I connected a while back this broadening formation. This is our weekly 3-2 expansion, range expansion here. So yeah, I mean, this 317.18 area could definitely end up being an area where we see price kind of reverse. So that is an area that I'm going to be looking for here. Not necessarily saying I want to get into any upside plays, but I mean, at this point, the damage is done. So I don't necessarily think that we're going to see more bleeding in the bank sector unless we do have that domino effect of additional banks failing. So that's something to keep your ear to the ground for and listen to. And to finish this out, we have IWM, the small caps, so like the Russell 2000. So it's on the month. We had our monthly trigger here. I forgot to move that guy. So here's our monthly trigger below 185.78, and that was a 2-2 reversal. And I mean, gosh, I'd be price targeting 171.90, and that pretty much happened this past week. At this point, your play is over. I wouldn't look at getting into anything on the monthly trigger. So let's go take a look at the week. Now, if I take a look at the week, this obviously suffered pretty hard too this past week. I mean, look at this massive 2 down candle. This wasn't an outside bar like everything else. It was a 2 down, but this is what we've been doing is looking at IWM on I kind of like think maybe like a bi-monthly basis at this point. But remember, everything was pretty much in a pivot machine gun setup. Pivot machine gun. Like everything that I just, all these white lines are pivot machine gun stops that are set, right? People bought here and yeah, up. Now we're looking at quickly taking out stops, and that is literally what happened this week. We took out these stops at 189 something. We took out these stops at 188.53. We took out anybody with stop set at 186. We took out stop set at 183. We took out stop set at 180. We took it stops 177.30. Next stop would be 171.9 and then 170.34. But we, in the course of, take a look at this, the whole week really, but in 2 days, we took out a majority of those weekly stops. So that is exactly how you want to see a pivot machine gun play out. A quick movement to take out a bunch of stops. And you're looking at reversals, right? You could have started the PMG with this 212, and then you would have probably been stopped out when the next week went 2 up, but then you'd been getting in on this 2-2 reversal trigger here below 186.12 for that additional drop down. IWM. IOXY is one that I like this week, and here's why. All right, let's take a look at the monthly. So we're starting off with an inside month still. We haven't had any movement to the downside. In fact, we're green on the month, which is kind of nice. So if I were to be looking at a monthly trigger, I would either be playing when we go 2 down under $57.96, or I would be looking at a 2-2 reversal upside play over $66.99. That's on the monthly. Okay, so let's move down to the weekly now. The weekly is a failed 2-up shooter candle. And if I zoom out further here, what we have is a definite, we got our trend here. You can always connect it there. But we've had this uptrend, and well, now we're outside of that uptrend, right? So that is the first thing to keep in mind when we're looking here. We're looking at trends, and we obviously got rejection here. So that is the first thing. Next, what we have is the failed 2 up, right? So that means sellers took control. And then it turned into a shooter candle. So sellers really took control and kept control of the candle this past week. So that to me indicates downside movement. So I'd be looking at entering something below the previous week's low of $59.43. My very first price target on a 2-2 reversal is going to be $58.37. Not a very massive move or price target, very shallow magnitude. But if we do end up going 2 down on the week, we see that 2-2 reversal, I definitely could see a move all the way down to the weekly low to trigger that 2 down continuation that I was talking about, right? So that's the first thing. Next, let's move out to a larger time frame, the quarter in this case. So the quarter, the previous quarter in October to the end of the year of 2022 was in a 1 bar, right? Inside consolidation here. That's what we see. We already have the 2 down trigger on the quarter, right? So now what's the quarter target? Well, the quarter target is going to be down here at $55.91 with the 2-2 reversal. The 1-2 that we already have in the hopper here, the 2-1-2. So $55.91 would be my larger scope price target. So if I were going to get something on the weekly level, I would probably get a couple weeks out to see that actually execute. Utilities and energy seem to really be the only thing that kind of didn't just tank because of the bank failure, because again, the SVB was mainly holding venture capital funds and tech company funds. So yeah, anyway, that is what I'd be looking at for IOXY. I like it for the downside. That's really my bias here. But again, if you want to play the upside, I'd be looking at over $63.58. Next up is AMD. We have on the weekly, we're going to start here, is a 2-1-2. That's what happened this past week, a 2-1-2 up. So we had our 2-1-2 reversal, and we probably could have had an indication that we were going to get some upside movement by the failed 2 down here. The problem is, if I zoom in even further, the failed 2 down, the week following pretty much, it was obviously inside, but it got right up to that $81.79 area and just kind of, came back down and then back up. Now, I personally do believe AMD is a victim of circumstance with all of the tech happenings going on right now. But what we are also looking at is a double top now, again, at around that monthly high area. So if I were going to be getting into AMD right now, I'm probably going to be looking at getting into it on the downside with a two reversal here. Again, that's just assuming that the market doesn't react well to what happened this past week and things just kind of continue to go downwards. Now, it is pretty shallow. The weekly or the quarterly high is here around the $79.23 area. That's obviously going to be some pretty significant support. However, if we do end up dropping through that, my very first price target for AMD to the downside is going to be $76.65. So that would be what I'm looking at, a 2-2 reversal. And really the only reason I say this is because we ended up seeing some significant support here around this fair value gap. So if I draw a fair value gap here, right, like all I'm doing when we have 3 candles in a row, but there's a gap in between them, that's the fair value gap. So here what we can see is we came down, we filled in the fair value gap, and then we progressed back upwards there. And that is the only reason I'm really saying anything about that. Now, if you want to get more specific, you can definitely join the Discord and we can talk more about it. But that's what I'm seeing with AMD, right? So again, I wouldn't be a bit surprised though if we do test this previous pivot point here, this kind of lame failed 2 up that we're looking at right here back on 220, the week of 220. But again, if you're looking at a bullish play here, what I would be wanting to see is a break above the monthly high. So if I go take a look at the month now, we are on an inside month with AMD, right? So we have a 2-1. Now, I don't necessarily think that we're going to see a significant upside movement just yet. I think we need we actually need some decent news. Now, keep in mind what is coming up in about 10 days is the new interest rates, how much they're going to raise them. Rumor has it right now, just because of the way things went last week, we're looking at 50 basis points instead of the initial promise 25. So that could change things quite a bit as well. Likely we'd end up seeing additional drop, but then again, you never really know how the market reacts to bad news anymore. So keep that in mind. We are on an inside month. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean stay away from things. I never really do. Maybe that's a lesson I should learn. But anyway, I'd be looking at an AMD to the downside. Just again, I'm looking at the wider market sentiment that I have right now, and that isn't upside stuff. So I'm not going to fight the trend of the market overall with AMD here. And last but not least, let's take a look at Meta. On the weekly, we have a pretty solid failed 2 up. All right, so I'm looking at a 2-2 reversal to the downside below 178.80, and my price target is going to be 169.06. Now, let's take a kind of a macro level look at what we have here. So wow, I don't like how it zooms like that. So we've had some pretty solid movement to the upside with Meta in the last couple months, 4 or 5 months now. So that's nice. Technology obviously needs to recover a little bit from the massive drops that we've been seeing over the course of the last year or so. But I'm not thinking it's going to happen just yet. Again, with everything kind of happening with banks and our Silicon Valley Bank and the overall market, we need some significantly good news to see this thing move up. So we still are on an inside month. Sorry, I kind of got off on tangent there. We are on an inside month, and that doesn't necessarily mean don't trade it. Like I said, just look at a smaller time frame. Just know where we sit, though. We haven't taken out the previous month's high, and we haven't taken out a previous month's low. So that is something that we need to keep in mind when we look at the smaller time frame. So again, if I do look at that smaller time frame, we have a failed to up. And again, I'd be looking at entry below 178.80 and a price target of 169.06. What you do end up seeing here is the previous month's, this blue line here is the previous month 50% fib line. So I do see some support happening around the 172.11 area. So that is something else to keep in mind. But I don't know if a play gets any simpler than this, a 2-2 reversal to the downside.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My first stock pick for the weekly watch is Amazon. Let's take a quick look at the monthly. It went 3-2-2 bearish reversal to the downside. If we continue to look down here for the chalk and money flow, it's below the zero line, trying to make its way up. MACD is also diverging down, not looking good for the month. If we continue lower, your first support is 87.89, which is your 100-day moving average. After that, you have a key level of support here at $81 on the month. I'll just make a quick note of that down here as your support. Now, when you move over to the weekly, you can see the same thing. So we made an outside week. Chalk and money flow is bearish underneath the zero line. MACD underneath the zero line as well, trying to make its way up. If we do go 3-2 to the upside, you enter in on the break over here. And I would say your first level of resistance would be right about here at 103 level. And then after that, you have room all the way up to here, which is your 50-day moving average at 112.58. If we go 3-2 to the downside, you enter at the low of the 3, and then the next support that it has is all the way down over at 81.50 level, which is down here, also lines up with your 3-bar. If we break all of that, I think the next support is actually way down here at 65 level. Yep, about like 65 level. So let's see what happens with Amazon. All right, the next pick for my weekly watch is going to be MU. Let's start off with the monthly chart. If you notice, we went 2-1-2 bearish reversal to the downside. Your chalk and money flow is below the zero line here. Your MACD is also diverging down on the month. So if we continue downward, your first strong level of support is going to be your 53.60 area, which is your 3-bar right here. That's your support. If you look back here, this 3-bar became resistance as well. So that's going to be a key level for MU to hold or break down on the month. If we switch over to the week now, week has been 2-2-2 bearish continuation. We have the MACD slowly curling down, but it's still above the zero line. Your chunk of money flow, your MACD is down here, making its way up, but still below the zero line. We have, if you do like a 2 up for the week, I would say enter at the break over here. Your first level would be, there's a little slight gap here if you look back here. So I would say if it makes it up here, that would be the first level, about like $60 worth. Yep, 60.96 area, I think would be the first level of resistance. And then after that, you have your 200-day moving average up here at 62.21. But if you look closely, your 50-day has crossed the 200-day, and that is a death cross on the week. So it looks bearish according to that. If we go and break 2 down again for the week, I would say enter at the low. Remember the first support level after 54, 53 is 53.60. If it breaks that, then your next target would be down here, which is about 51.40, and then after that, your next target would be right about there, which is about 48.45, so just call it 50 even to be safe. And that's my take for MU.
That's going to wrap up this edition of the Weekly Watch. Make sure you join our free trading Discord with the link in the description field to get intraday strat setups with our custom bots. Also remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and click that bell to get notified when we drop another video. Happy trading!